Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hanan. I'm coming to you from New Jersey, where I live with my husband, our daughter, and our unborn child. Yep, I am still very much pregnant. And it seems I will be that way forever. My back and my lungs are over it. But I'm grateful to be here in another video. These last few days have been really crazy because there's so many new people here, way more than I ever expected. All of you have been so kind and so encouraging, and I just love this community so much. And because there are quite a few people here in this corner of the internet now, I felt like it was a good time to do a Q&A, and so I'm here with just that. On my Instagram at HANAAN BONET, I asked people there to ask any questions they had. I'm having a bit of trouble keeping up with the individual DMs and messages and some emails. So I wanted everything to be in one space so that I could compile it all together and turn it into this video. So let's just get right into it. Let's just get right into it. First question. What do I do for work, and did I study anything? I'm a mom. I stay home with my daughter all day, every day. Sometimes we go on walks, sometimes we go to the library, sometimes we visit friends. But most of the time, I'm home with her. I play with her. I cook her food, change diapers, bathe, all the things that moms do, and that is my job. Prior to having children, I always envisioned myself being home with them, and I'm really grateful to be able to do that. Did I study anything? Yeah, I studied mathematics. Did I ever use my major in any sort of job that I've ever had? No. But I guess that happens sometimes. How did I get started knitting? If memory serves, in 2020, I stumbled upon Well Love Knits. At the time, I think just released a pattern, a sweater pattern, paneled, and I think seamed, and it looked doable to me. I don't know even how I came across that video, because at that time, knitting had never even been, I never fixed my fingers to type in knitting on YouTube. It just happened. So I came across her, and she also had a tutorial for that sweater, and I bought some yarn at probably Michael's or something. And Michael's is a fine place to buy yarn, but at the time I had no idea about fiber content, or how important it was to like pair the right fiber content with the right project, or any of that. So I think it was acrylic, and I prefer wool now. But yeah, so I started that project. I never finished it. Don't know why. And then a few months later, I tried to make a beanie by Petite Knit. And I think to cast on, she said to do a tubular or Italian tubular cast on or something like that. And at the time, I just could not do it. And I still haven't been successful in doing it, but I was like, if I can't do this, then I'm not doing it. I was an all or nothing girly, so I tried many times and wasn't successful. And so I gave up. And I didn't pick knitting up again until I think right before I gave birth. So that was like 3 years later. And I knit a pair of socks for my baby, and then I didn't get serious about knitting until 2024, and here I am. How did I develop my skills? By obsessively watching YouTube and knitting almost every single day. When I decided in 2024 that I would get serious about knitting, I knit every single day. I watch a lot of YouTube podcasters, learned a lot of things. There's so much to learn from watching YouTubers who also knit, because they talk about their projects, they talk about what works, what didn't work, and sometimes they have tips. And so I started buying patterns, started trying to make them, and if I didn't know how to do a thing, YouTube has tutorials on everything, and that's how I learned how to knit. Not from my mother, my grandmother, which I think is so sweet, by the way, when you learn how to knit from a family member. But I learned from YouTube, and if I could do it, you could do it. Knitting tips for beginners. My number one tip is just to knit every day. Like, knitting is, as with anything new, it's weird at first. You don't know how to hold your needles properly. You don't even know what needles you like. You don't even really know that much about fiber, maybe, most likely. It's all weird, and it's a learning process. If you knit every day and just look up things you don't know, you will become good at it if it's something that you really want to become good at. I mean, I know a lot of much more technical knitters than I am. Like, I've been staying in a nice little safe bubble with my knitting. If you notice, I don't do a lot of textured knitting. Currently, I have no desire to do cables of any sort, but I'm pretty decent. Like, there are some things that I do that I think I'm good at. A good first pattern. A lot of people here recommend the Sophie scarf. I have never made it, but I do have the pattern. I looked it over, and yes, it's a simple, small, and engaging, I think, maybe based on the instructions, pattern where you can learn how to knit, increase, decrease, just like the basics of knitting. It's not your typical boring rectangular scarf that, lasts forever and ever and ever, and you have to, knit feet of fabric until you're done. So I think that might be good. But I think my number one tip, and it, varies from person to person because everyone has their own specific style, is I would suggest you just knit something you really, really want to wear. I don't care if it's a sweater. Like, if a sweater is your very first project, like, I think anything is doable. I mean, most things are doable. I wouldn't recommend doing maybe a bottom-up colorwork, a bottom-up textured colorwork sweater or anything like that. But something simple that you really, really want to wear, and it could be a sweater, it could be socks, and just really like devote time into focusing and learning the techniques that you need to do it. And if you really want to do it, you'll do it. So maybe I wouldn't recommend a specific pattern, but just find something you like, and that will motivate you to push through the weirdness and get it done. And then you'll be so happy, and it'll be beautiful, and you get to wear it, and people may ask you about it, and you'll be so proud. And the pride I feel when I see my children my kid, I only have one kid right now, but the pride I feel when I see my husband or my child wearing something I made is just incredible. I just love it so much. But designers that I would recommend, and this isn't revolutionary to people who already knit, but Petite Knit and I think Ozetta have really, really well written patterns. And just like a range of basic styles that I think any beginner can do, as long as it's like stockinette or something. I think this is like maybe, I've never heard anyone mention this, but not only are their patterns really well written, but the font they use, the font size, and the spacing of the instructions to me make their instructions just more easy to understand. It's easier on the eye and just easier to understand. For some reason, don't know the science behind that, but they were they were some of the first designers I ever bought patterns for. And when I began to branch out, I was like shook at just the overall look of other people's patterns. Like, it's like some people, it seems like they try to like crowd everything onto one page or just a few pages. And even for me, like having like 2 rows of instruction, so you like start top at one side and then you go to the top and work your way down on the other side, to me that's like sometimes confusing. I don't like it, but it's doable. People do it all the time. But as a beginner, maybe start with Petite Knit or Ozetta. Favorite place to get patterns? Ravelry. I don't like how outdated the website is. It needs to be redesigned. But I'm always scrolling on it, always finding my patterns on there. And they have thousands and thousands and thousands of patterns there, so it's convenient. I find a lot of pattern recommendations by watching people who podcast. I'm always inspired by that. I'm always coming across new patterns I've never heard of, probably patterns I would have never heard of or never found on Ravelry, because Ravelry can get overwhelming sometimes. And Pinterest. Pinterest has a lot of photos of beautiful knitwear, and they may not be linked directly to a pattern, but it does inspire me to find patterns that are similar and to maybe modify it to look like the image. I got a lot of questions about how I choose colors, and I think I definitely want to do a longer, more in-depth video dedicated on where I get my inspiration from, what color combos are inspiring me, how do I choose color combos, and all of that. I think color is such an interesting topic. I think that might be an interesting video. Do I knit my socks toe up or cuff down? Cuff down all the way. I've never knit a sock toe up. And I'm thinking of knitting a sock toe up. I found a pattern that I'm interested in giving it a go. That might be my first toe up sock. But cuff down makes the most sense to me, and I love that I get to try it on as I go. And that's why most of my socks fit me, because I'm constantly trying it on. Is the cuff stretchy enough to fit over my heel? Is the leg wide enough to fit comfortably? Where should I start the heel? So yeah, definitely a cuff down girl. My favorite sock heel. I only know how to do 2 sock constructions. Well, I recently tried the shadow wrap heel. Tried and succeeded, yes. but I wouldn't say that I've commit the technique to memory. This is something that I have to keep practicing. But up until then, I had only been doing heel, flap, and gusset and the forethought heel, which is like the afterthought heel basically. But I call it the forethought heel because I do plan where I'm going to cut in for it. So I think it's the forethought heel and not the afterthought heel, whatever. But you know, that heel where you add after you do the sock tube. I like the heel, flap, and gusset for the fit. It fits beautifully. It's so comfortable. I've only done it once though to completion. And I love the fit, but I don't like the process. I prefer the process of the forethought heel, for, you know, ease and also aesthetically. It's just like, it just looks cuter to me. I'm casually looking for a heel that satisfies both ease and aesthetic. And maybe the shadow wrap heel will be that. But so far the fit isn't like revolutionary. So I need to look up how to modify the shadow wrap heel so it fits as good as a heel, flap, and gusset. But that is something that I will be working on. Advice for self-drafting socks. I have notes here for all these questions, so that's why I'm glancing down. But I would say follow the instructions for a vanilla sock, cuff down. Try it on as you go, take notes along the way. I would just maybe start with a US 1 needle. Don't know what the millimeters are. Maybe I'll have that on the screen. By the way, I need to learn millimeters versus just US numbers. Millimeters makes more sense, but as an American, you just don't learn that. You're not taught that in schools primarily. So anyway, I would start with a US 1 needle and start by working on the cuff and just trying it on just to see how many stitches you actually need to cast on for it to fit you. I would recommend sizing up, so I'd recommend casting on more stitches rather than sizing up the needles if it's too small, because you want the fabric to be tight. You want the gauge to be, for a sock to be hard wearing, you want the fabric to just be like tight, if that makes sense. So instead of going up like to you a size 2 or something, I would just cast on more stitches to compensate for the sizing. Recognize the parts of the sock so you know have a good understanding of construction. So you start with the cuff, then you do the leg, then you do the heel, the foot, and the toe. And also just be, you know, accept the fact that you might have to frog a lot, and that's fine. Take breaks if you need to. Come back with fresh eyes. And once you know what works for you, just repeat. And then plug in some color charts if you're feeling fancy. You can create color charts on Stitch Fiddle, which I've done with my quilt inspired socks. Or you can refer to, you know, some vintage color workbooks, which, oh my gosh. Ooh, that was a lot of effort. I recently got this mitten book from eBay, and I love it so much. Like, these charts can be plugged into any sort of project, not just mittens. What needles do I use for my socks? I'm a diehard Chiaogu fan. Diehard. Started off knitting with Leica needles. Then once I started knitting socks, I think I watched Summer Lee's video And she said that she used mini circular CHAOGOs. And once I tried that, I never went back. Metal needles for the win, CHAOGO for the win, all day, every day. I invested in an interchangeable needle set and never looked back. Like, everything about that set is just perfection to me. I think the 4-inch needles, the cords, beautiful. They're strong, flexible. The needle tips, sharp. The metal, smooth. Everything is just beautiful. So to cast on the cuff, I do magic loop. I will avoid DPNs at all costs. So I do magic loop for the cuff, and usually like a 32-inch US 1. And actually sometimes I cast on just like the initial first row with like a half a size larger, just so it's stretchier, because I don't feel like learning how to do a stretchy cast on technique. I'm lazy like that sometimes. One day I will learn, but yes, I've been casting on with, sometimes I do cast on with a larger needle so it's stretchier, and then immediately switch to my US 1s. Once I get to the leg of the foot, I switch to my mini circulars. I don't care if it's color work, don't care if it's just regular stockinette. Mini circulars they just work for me, and it makes my stitches look even, and it makes it seems like the project goes by faster actually too. I think it does, because you're not having to move your stitches and then like turn over your work and then do all the things that you do when you're doing magic loop. For color work, I do size up, so I use a US size 2, and I learned that from Summer Lee, and it's just worked, because when you're doing color work, the fabric is twice as thick and there's not as much stretch, so sizing up always works for me. Will I ever design patterns? Probably not. Especially in the season of my life right now, I don't have the time or the desire, quite frankly. I don't feel like learning about grading. I don't feel like working with test knitters. And I'm pretty satisfied with all the patterns that are out there. And if there's something that I want to tweak, I tweak. I don't think I need to add any more patterns to what's already out there right now. I feel like everything I could ever want currently has already been designed. I'm a simple girl. My all-time favorite piece I've ever made is my Winters Pullover. I mean, since I've made it, I've worn it every day. I've worn it in the house. I've worn it during naps. I've worn it out. My child, she sneezed her oatmeal all over it. I just spot cleaned it. Any excuse I have to wear it, I wear it. Like, it's perfect in every way. And the best thing about it, not only is the fit exactly how I want it, we'll see when I'm not pregnant anymore how it fits over the stomach, but I did make sure to not knit it too long so that when I am no longer pregnant, it still fits the way I want. But anyway, besides the fit, secondhand yarn I found online, so it wasn't expensive. For those of you who follow me on my Instagram, you know how much I love this sweater. I could talk about it for days. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's the most perfect thing I've ever made. I can't, there are no notes. Not a single note. Not a single note on this sweater. I'll get into more detail about this. The modifications I made. The yarn. The sizing in my next podcast. But It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Favorite kids patterns. Not revolutionary again, but most things that Petite Knit makes. She has like 5 kids, so I think she knows a bit about children's garments and how they should fit. And I love the simplicity of her patterns, and again, like, I love the way she writes her patterns, so I trust her. I've knit the summer's cardigan modified twice to completion, and like a third time that I frogged, but I love that cardigan pattern. It's just perfect. Also, I would recommend the Tweety Junior pullover by Beata Jezik. It's a free pattern, and I've knit that maybe 3 times, modified it, easy to modify. So easy to follow, easy to modify, and it's free. What am I most excited to knit in 2025? More garments, more adult-sized garments, and just more things for me. More things for me. I have very specific desires when it comes to clothing, and it's just great that I'm able to make it exactly to my preferences. And I just want to knit more sweaters. Like, I just love this so much. I just feel empowered to keep creating things like this that I love, that I can pass down to my children, that I can also just like wear, you know? Like, I haven't been precious about this at all. I've worn it. I'm loving it. I just love it so much. Other crafts on my 2025 list. Sewing. I've been talking about wanting to learn how to sew for a while, and I want to learn how to sew this year, but having 2 children under 2, don't know realistically if I'll get to that, but it's something that I really, really want to do, because if I learn how to sew and I know how to knit, I'll be unstoppable. Like, I can create anything I want. That would be amazing. Like, I have so many dress ideas. Yeah. I want to learn how to quilt. There's so many things that I would do if I knew how to sew. Oh my gosh. That would be amazing. But yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for being here and putting up with my sickness. Hopefully I'm back before this child is born with another podcast, with an in-depth color episode, and yeah. Follow my Instagram again at HANAAN BONET. I talk a lot about what I'm getting into in my stories, a lot. And yeah, subscribe to my channel and I guess push the notification